All right. Welcome, everybody, to The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News, and we are the official news channel for CARE, which stands for the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to restore our beautiful planet. And in order to do that, we have to know what's really happening on it, because if you just turn on the radio, maybe get some updates on social media, you're not getting the real news. And that's what we talk about. We talk about the real news because there's so many different narratives out there, and it really doesn't matter if you're watching mainstream media or you think you're escaping mainstream media by listening or watching alternative media. There are some good-hearted people really on both camps, but their hands are just tied and they're just getting bad information. And then, of course, you do have people that are deliberately trying to mislead the public. So we do the exact opposite. We're going to let you know exactly what's going on, the good, the bad, the ugly, but also to uplift you, because I know there's a lot of gloom and doom out there. And so we try to balance this with positive news, because really where we're going as a planet and as humanity is so beautiful. It's clouded right now by a lot of bad people, quote unquote, bad people, doing very egotistical things and thinking, they're going to run the world and not really caring what happens to the people that are on this planet, not really caring about the planet at all, just want power. That's all they want. So I know that, the headlines showcase all of that. But what's really happening is beautiful, because humanity is realizing who they are. More and more people are waking up to this fact every day. So hopefully you are some of those enlightened people. And if not, you get to learn something new. I always encourage you guys, when you are either watching our newscast or you're listening to this podcast, do your own research too. Don't just believe us because we say something. Go digging a little bit, because this information is out there in various forms. It's just nobody wants to put in the effort to really find these answers. So I encourage you guys to not go with the flow, to really think critically, ask your own questions, and use your discernment. Oh my goodness. Humanity, I say humanity has a built-in lie detector, and it's called discernment. So if you are connected to God Source, the Creator, this gets easier and easier. And it's really, whether you're talking about truth or you're talking about fiction or lies or whatever, it's really all a frequency. So you just have to know what that frequency feels like, and you'll be able to tell if something is true or not. So on this podcast, what we do, it's basically kind of like a weekly roundup. We go over some of the top stories that we talked about on our newscast this last week. So if you haven't seen our news before, we have a newscast that comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can get more information about that at unitednetwork.earth. That's our main website. And on this podcast, like I said, it's kind of a roundup. I go over some of the stories, because you may have missed some of those episodes. Even if you missed one newscast, you can kind of feel out of place, what did I miss? So this is a great way to get caught up on that. But also, even if you're not a member, even if you don't subscribe, through our website and through our app, you can watch these newscasts 1 week after they are released to our members. And you can do that through YouTube and Rumble. Again, assuming nothing's going to get taken down. We've actually been really lucky, and I don't really believe in luck, but I believe this information is supposed to get out there, right? And so we have to get it out there to as many people as possible. We also have to pay the bills. So it's what do you do? But if you do want to catch up on all of this, especially when I talk about the field messenger reports, the best way to watch that, if you're not a member, again, check out our YouTube and Rumble channels. And if you want direct links to that, you can go to unitednetwork.earth. And in the bottom navigation has all of our social media, including at least the YouTube. I'm not sure if Rumble is listed there, but you can always search for us in Rumble. Okay, so let's briefly talk about what we're going to cover in today's episode. We've got field messenger reports from all over the world. This time we've got Australia, Canada, Uganda, as well as a few from the United States. In the New Earth, we're going to talk about using food as not just fuel, because you've heard that a lot, right? Food is fuel, but also for awakening. Because if you're not eating the right stuff, if you're eating a lot of stuff that doesn't quite agree with your body, it could actually inhibit your body's ability to fully awaken and understand what's happening on our planet. We're also going to talk about our children and placing labels on our children and what that does to our children's psyche and how that can inhibit them as well. And we're going to talk about monetizing your gifts because we're huge advocates of you getting out there and doing what you're passionate about that. Again, that's a frequency. That is a love, passion frequency. And if we can get more people to be passionate about what they do on a day-to-day basis, this world, wow, you're going to see major changes in this world if we can do that. So we want to encourage you throughout that process. In our regional stories, we're going to talk about what's happening in housing around the world. We've got some issues going on. Renewable energy. We've got some updates regarding solar and let's see, what was the other story about? Oh, electric vehicles, our favorite. So we'll update you guys on that. And then we've got a few stories to share with you about technology and some changes that big tech is making. We like to keep you updated on that. And then we have our world situation report. And in there, we talk about things that are happening throughout the multiverse. So specifically, we like to give you updates on what the deep state is doing. I know it's, we all kind of roll our eyes like, what are they doing now? This is ridiculous. Why are they still here? So we've got some updates because some of these Trump operatives think that they can rule the world on their own, that they don't need help from anybody else, including other deep state people. So we actually reversed some of their funding. And I don't think they were too happy about that, but Kim did that. She's going to tell us more about that. I'll play a quick soundbite. And then we're also going to talk about a decision that was made to, on this planet, you have darkness, right? And you can't necessarily just get rid of all of the darkness because you've got light. The opposite of that is dark. And the two have coexisted forever, really, since the creation of matter. And so our original thought process was let's get rid of the dark, but that's not really working. And we'll explain that a little bit more. And then the decision was made to transmute the dark, which is something the dark side has done the exact opposite for a long time. They would take the light, transmute the light into darkness to be able to use it because the dark side cannot create. They have to steal from the light in order to create. So we will explain that and how we are doing the exact opposite by transmuting the darkness into light. And hopefully that will speed up this restoration plan and get all of you involved in helping with your amazing projects. All right, so let's get started with all this. Today is June 8th, 2024. Here is the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. Okay, let's get started with our field messenger reports. Our field messengers, you guys, are the heart and soul of what United Network News is all about. These are everyday people like you. Hopefully, some of you listening have actually submitted a report before. If you haven't, I encourage you to do so. It's really easy to do. You don't have to have any experience. What you need is some sort of smartphone, right? To be able to, because we have these amazing cameras on our phones now, and you can record anything you want. And so we have people submitting stories that are a little bit more newsy. We have some people submitting stories just what's happening in their community. And both are great because we're getting to know each other a little bit better through, without the intervention, I guess I should say, of mainstream media, like putting these ideas in our head of what this place is like, or this is what this group of people is like. We don't need them, okay? We can communicate with one another. And one of the ways we do that is through our field messenger reports. And our goal is to grow this and have field messengers all over the world, which we already do, but I would love to have them in every city, in every community, because you know your area best, right? So in each newscast, we have a couple of stories. So on Monday, we started with a story from Natalie in Australia. And she talks about a parking dispute that's going on in the area of the Mornington Peninsula. And there, the local council started a paid parking trial to raise money. Now, here's the thing. If you want to park in these areas, it's more than $6 per hour. And the payments have to be made electronically, so there's no cash or anything. You don't really talk to anyone. I believe she says done through an app. There's a lot of people that aren't liking this whatsoever. And for the local businesses, they're actually losing quite a bit of money. And so there are probably going to be some changes to this, but Natalie was just raising some awareness so we understood what was going on there. All right, the next story is from Sean in Canada. Specifically, he was in Whistler, Canada, and he's talking about 15-minute cities. And I know this is a trigger point for a lot of people, myself included. When I saw the name of this story, I was like, why are we talking about 15-minute cities in a positive light? Because what Sean does, and this isn't, I don't believe this is an official 15-minute city, so this wasn't the deep state coming in and saying, oh, you're going to have everything you want within 15 minutes. What Sean saw was a community in Whistler where everything really, at least most of the stuff that you really need on a regular basis, was within walking distance from where you lived. So, hence the name 15-minute city. And he talks about some of the benefits of this. So I know some of you are totally turned off by a story like this, but he has a good point. And I really had to think about this for a little bit because there are some people that really could benefit from this type of living. The problem is when politicians or people that want to control other people use this in order to place limitations on people and potentially lock down people. That is the negative side of this. But it does make a lot of sense, and I concur with Sean, and hopefully you guys will check out the report for yourself and, make your own conclusion. But it does make sense, especially for older people. It's a nice little community, and that's what he was trying to show, is that there is another side to this 15-minute city story. Although we don't want the negative stuff that comes with it, right? That's no. But this idea of being around shops and places that you would frequent and you can just walk there within a few minutes is kind of a cool thing. It's like a small town, really. So check that out if you guys want more information. On Wednesday, we had Brian from Uganda share with us the Promise Junior School. Now, this is a community that he started back in 2021 in Uganda. And he said he's just trying to make the world a better place through affordable education. So we got to see a lot of video of the students there. He recently had some visitors come and they were helping him and distributing some material. And I think they're looking for some volunteers. Anyway, it's just people trying to make a difference. And that's really what the restoration of our planet is about. It's about us taking the control back, not in a negative way, but providing for other people and helping other people and really, just creating community from this. And that's exactly what Brian did. We also had a story from Kathleen, and she is in the USA. She's in Tennessee, and she takes us to this healing art exhibit. And it's an exhibit that focused in on the slave days in the United States. And part of it's sad, right? Because people were not treated the way they should be treated. So it documented some of that, but it also attempted to shine a light during a very dark time. So the people that were doing incredible things during that time, it highlights their stories as well. And the exhibit is called Breaking the Chains of Forgetfulness. Then on Friday, we had a couple of stories. Diane in the United States, she was actually reporting from Michigan at Mackinac Island. If you guys have not been there, I encourage you to go. This was a mistake that I made. I'm originally from Ohio in the United States, and my first job out of college was in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So to go from where I lived in Ohio, I had to go up through Michigan, and I would pass Mackinac Island every time I did. And everyone told me, you got to go to Mackinac Island. You got to go. And I never stopped because I was like on a mission. I was like, I got to get back to work or whatever. I'm going home or whatever. And I never went. So it was really nice to see this report from Diane. So going to Mackinac Island is like taking a trip back in time because you don't have regular vehicles. In fact, I believe she said, unless it's an emergency vehicle, there are no traditional vehicles. What you have is horse-drawn carriages, which is pretty awesome. You can walk, you can ride your bike. They have an old fort there, and apparently they make amazing fudge. Oh, and then the beautiful hotel. So it's just an amazing place to really enjoy nature and enjoy the simplicity of life. Do not make the mistake that I did and drive past it several times and never go. Be sure to check out that report if you want to learn more about Mackinac Island. And then Claudia in the United States, she was actually reporting from Georgia, the state of Georgia in the U.S. She talks about the Sacred Circle. That's the name of a group of women. And it's just an example of what you can do here. But this group of women gather every Monday morning to learn more about each other from a spiritual perspective. They want to get to know each other on a deeper level. So there's no surface level talk here. Maybe in the beginning before they start the meeting. But most of it is there's readings. I think the report also showed some Tibetan bowls. And really just kind of getting in tune with each other on a spiritual level, which is beautiful. Again, if you want to see any of these reports and you're not already a member, check out our YouTube and Rumble channels about a week after the report comes out. In the New Earth, this is our section of the news, which is all about empowering you and showing you what other incredible humans are doing on this planet and innovative ideas. Like, where is our planet going and what should we really be focused on? Because I know we need to know what's happening on our planet now, but that's not always the most exciting stuff. It's certainly not the most uplifting stuff. So that's what the New Earth portion of our newscast is for. And I usually kick this off with doing a short interview with somebody, and then we have a few stories. So let's focus on our interviews first. On Monday, we had Pam Stillwell-Boone on the show. She is an osteopath, a kinesthesiologist, and a holistic mind-body spirit coach. And I love Pam's perspective. She talked about food, which most of us love. And we've heard the term food as fuel, which makes sense, right? It's fuel for your body. But have you really thought about food as a tool to help you awaken? I remember I had a telepathy experience. This was probably more than a year ago now. And I'm not even sure who exactly I was talking to. I knew they were a group of ETs, benevolent ETs. And they said to me, we would love to share information with you that might be appropriate for the news, but we can't connect with you properly right now because of your diet. That was a very humbling experience. I shared that experience with Kim, and probably for like 3 or 4 weeks, I was on a mission to really make this connection work, and I was juicing and all this stuff, and then it kind of fell by the wayside because I'm human, and I have 4 children that keep me eating stuff I probably shouldn't eat. Let's just put it that way. But that's what this whole segment made me think of. Like, oh my gosh, because it's all about vibration, right? And if we're eating stuff that has chemicals in it, just stuff that is not nourishing for our bodies, like how do we expect to go to the next level with our bodies? How do we expect to go to that next level of awakening? So Pam reminds us that that really is possible, but sometimes you got to watch what you eat, guys. You know, I was told firsthand by a group of beings that I don't even know who they were, but they were trying to help us. And, it didn't quite work out in my situation. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe I'll learn how to eat a little bit better and they'll come back. All right. On Wednesday, we had a segment with Belinda Tung. I love Belinda. So she is a mother who started a website called Perfect Child. The website's perfectchild.org. And she just had a bunch of questions. She's an awakened person and realized that living this kind of lifestyle completely changes how you function as a parent. And it's like learning all over again, right? Learning from scratch. And so she started to interview people about what that looked like. And you can find those interviews on our website. I love talking to Belinda because we've actually interviewed a lot of the same people. And so we get into these really interesting conversations just because we're both moms. So this topic is about putting labels on our children, which probably most of you listening to this podcast know that that's probably not the best thing to do, right? You know, you're defining your children as something. And a lot of times children take that to heart in so many different ways, and it affects them in so many ways. And I share some examples of things that I love my mother to death, but she would do this to me quite a bit. She would say, "Oh, you're really good at this, but don't worry about this. Like, don't even bother with that because you're just not good at that." And even as an adult, there are things that I'm trying to get through now. And I still hear my mother's voice. She's still around. She's still a big part of my life. But I hear my mother saying, "Oh, you're not good. You're not good at that. Don't worry about that. Like, focus on stuff you're really good at." So Belinda and I talk about these labels that we unintentionally, even though we love our children, we have a tendency to put on our kids, and then the effect that has on our children. And then on Friday, we had an interview with Grace Gravestock, who calls herself a transformation maverick. Isn't that an amazing title? But she loves empowering people with what they want to do as part of this restoration process, right? Really empower people in their work and who they are and what they want to do with their time. So we talked to Grace about monetizing your gifts, because a lot of us may know like what really makes you passionate. You know, if you could do anything you wanted to do for a career, for your job, what would it be? Then the next question is, well, how are you going to make money doing it? So Grace gives us some things to think about is that whole process. And I know we don't want to focus so much on money. I agree with that. I wish money was not even a thing. I wish we were past this whole next stage that humanity has to go through with money, because I really don't like money very much. But it's a necessary evil right now, I guess you could say. And so we have to have it in order to do the things we love. Most of us do, because, you know, we don't have just money just sitting around, you know, just waiting for us to use. We've got to work hard to get this money. So Grace has some great tips there. We also have some stories that we talked about throughout the week. We talked about recycling oyster shells. So if you don't already know this, oyster reefs play a crucial role in protecting marine life and shorelines from erosion. And in the United States, there is a project that is recycling oyster shells from restaurants. They take these shells, and then the shells go through a 6-month sun baking process. And then they're placed in biodegradable cotton bags, and then people relocate them to the reef sites. Volunteers actually carry these bags into the sea, and the whole goal here is to create thriving ecosystems, because here's a fun fact. Each oyster can filter up to 15 gallons of water daily. So again, just one more example of people that are doing incredible stuff that most people aren't getting recognition for this. We also talk about something that we're seeing more and more in the U.S. and possibly in other places of the world, and that is workstations for parents. This is happening in several public libraries to support not just parents, but caregivers, anyone who's watching children. So they basically have these cubicles where the parents, the caregivers, they can be on the computer, which the computers have internet access. And then they've built in these play areas around it for infants and toddlers. And their whole goal here is to make the library more accessible to parents with young children. And I do hope that as we continue to restore our planet, we kind of get out of the mindset of, oh, kids, like kids being a pain in the butt, or, oh, babies crying, the death stares that you get on airplanes and things like that. I've been in that boat when my kids were little. And I hope that as a society, we really start to appreciate the different stages of life more. Because we now know that our kids, oh my gosh, everything that's going on in their brains, especially before age 7, they are directly connected to our Creator. And if we allow them to just explore and be who they naturally are, they would just flourish. And I hope likewise with our senior citizens and the older people in our life, I hope that same respect is given and there's more opportunities, especially for the younger people, to be fostered by the older people. Wouldn't that be amazing? It's that way in many indigenous cultures, and I really think that we would benefit from bringing that back. And finally, we've got another new Earth story about bystander intervention. So there is an international movement. It's called Right to Be, and they are empowering bystanders. It's so hard for me to say that. I want to turn it into bystanders, but no, bystanders. And this group is offering free training to help people reduce conflict. So you're a bystander in a situation, right? To reduce conflict and assist those experiencing bullying, harassment, and discrimination. And they teach 5 safe intervention methods: distract, delegate, document, delay, and direct. So I guess you're going to have to take the course if you want to learn more in depth about all that. They say more than 500,000 people have already received training. Now let's take a look at what's happening around the world in our regional stories. So we cover a bunch of these types of stories in each newscast. And so for this podcast, I like to pick out some of the common denominators. So what categories are we talking more about each week? So I've got 3 that we're going to talk about today. The first category is housing. We're also going to talk a little bit about renewable energy, and finally, technology. So in the housing category, we have Indonesian workers, and they are protesting a new required housing savings program. So this is mandatory. And the program requires those earning at least minimum wage to contribute 2.5% of their monthly income, and then the employers add another 0.5%. Now, this is not a completely new policy. They've just expanded who has to pay into this. The policy previously only applied to full-time government workers, but now it extends to far more employees. Critics argue the program reflects the government's inability to provide, hence them having to expand this program. And they also say it's going to penalize the working class, especially those who don't want to comply because there are fees for noncompliance. In South Africa, there is a housing crisis going on, and it has reached critical levels. It's impacting millions of people now. Government data shows a drastic drop in the construction of fully subsidized houses during the past 3 decades. And this is mainly due to budget cuts as well as the pandemic. Many people are living in poor conditions. Some are even occupying abandoned buildings. And in Argentina, homelessness is surging in many of the major cities due to the new government's economic reforms to reduce pension, to cut state salaries, and to raise rental prices. This has particularly impacted pensioners and the working class, and many of these people are now seeking help from local charities. They say utility bills have skyrocketed, and it's forcing people to choose between heating and eating. I mean, how do you do that? You really need both, right? And there's been an almost 300% annual inflation in Argentina, so they definitely need some help over there. Okay, let's move on to renewable energy. The first story is about a proposed plan in France. The Marseille Court of Appeals has ruled against the French government because the government failed to find an alternative site for a solar project that threatened local biodiversity. So they wanted to have this project. They were supposed to find an alternative site. They did not do that. And so this ruling is against the government because they didn't do what they said they were going to do. So the decision halted the current work. It also declared the site that they were working on illegal. And they are expecting this judgment to be contested at some point by a higher court. But right now, the people say they are focused mainly on ecological restoration and holding the state responsible. Now let's talk about electric vehicles in Germany. So their whole EV industry is facing challenges. Many consumers are regretting their purchase or lease, and I believe this is happening in other countries. We've run stories about this, especially in the US. We have a lot of people having buyer's remorse. In Germany, there are rising electricity costs are a major factor for people being upset. It's causing a lot of frustration. And a large number of newly registered electric cars in Germany have actually been sold abroad rather than staying in Germany because the people are like, yeah, we don't want this. Send it elsewhere. We don't want it here. All right, moving on to technology. I've got a few stories for you guys here. Google has announced it will delete users' location data from its servers. Now, that sounds good, okay? But this is a year after pledging to reduce stored personal data. So it took them a little while. This timeline feature is what they call it, the timeline feature. It records travel history, and it will save data now locally on servers instead of the Google servers. The company has also shortened the default time for the location history from 18 months to 3 months. And this is after Google faced scrutiny after some aggressive law enforcement actions allowed for the stored data to be used for surveillance. So kind of some fishy things going on with law enforcement able to come in and grab the data from Google, and people really aren't liking that because they feel like they're being watched. All right, next story. Australia, in fact, the government in Australia is introducing legislation to make creating and sharing deep fake pornographic images without consent a criminal offense. That makes sense, right? This deep fake technology mainly targets women and girls, so they're trying to protect them in this whole legislation. This new law proposes up to 7 years of imprisonment for offenders. And our final story is about Apple. Now, why? With some of these stories, you guys, I'm like, why? How did this happen? How did we get this far? Apple is fixing a bug that would allow children to bypass restrictions and view adult content online. Now, listen to this. This is insane. This was the issue. It involves using a specific phrase in the Safari browser to disable screen time controls. And we don't say what the phrase is. We obviously don't want people doing this because I don't think they've made this change yet. But what in the world, Apple? So some strange phrase, a very specific phrase, if you were to take that phrase, put it in the Safari browser, it would disable screen time controls? Who would do this? This is so random. This is so deliberate, I guess is the right word, right? You don't accidentally do something like this. It's like when you hear about in Disney cartoons or in the animations, horrible words being written in the dust or, some phallic symbol, being on the cover of the DVD or, I feel like it's the same thing. It's like, what in the world? Why would you ever allow for this? Apparently, the issue was reported 2 years ago, and parents say they feel betrayed, rightfully so. I mean, I'm one of those parents. My kids are on Apple devices, and we're frustrated because First of all, I don't know if you guys know this, but it is very difficult, if not impossible. Apple does not really allow third-party parental controls. And so you're really at their mercy of whatever their parental controls are. And this is obviously a huge loophole. I don't know. When I heard this story, I was like, are you kidding me, Apple? Seriously? And now it is time for our highlights from the World Situation Report with Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian. So Kim was quite busy on Monday. She did not make it to the news. Sometimes it's hit or miss. You know, we don't really know when we start the newscast sometimes if Kim is going to be on or not, because there is a lot going on this planet that she is assisting with. And so we never really know. Monday was one of those days. And so she was not on the news. I did read a statement, which I'm going to read for you guys now, just to give you a quick wrap up of what was going on. So here you go. Kim is in the middle of some momentous positive changes happening for humanity and our planet. We'll have a full report for you on Wednesday. As for the deep state, operative meetings have been going on in Durango and other parts of the world, and a lot of new information has come to light that was held back from them. The majority now have an understanding of what has gone wrong and why no one is getting paid. All but 6 people are ready to move forward. Those 6 are Trump operatives. No surprise there. The current plan is to take the $200 million they collected from patriots in the USA that was sent in support of the former president, especially since his guilty verdicts. That was until they woke up this morning being Monday. They woke up this morning with the entire Van Kemp family fortune missing. If you are new to us, Van Kemp was the founding family name and also the Trump family's real name of the Order of the Black Sun. The reversal of all the Black Sun Cash networks and the Order of the Dragon network cash has led to a sharp decline of 99.97% in the stock of Berkshire Hathaway. Warren Buffett, a well-known bagman for the order, has been told by the deep state that they will fix it, while the public is being told it is just a glitch. You can expect to see several other well-known cabal-owned corporation stocks tank in the coming days unless the deep state has enough cyber power to fake the numbers. Okay, so that was the statement. And if you guys were online on Monday, there was an article circulating around specifically about Berkshire Hathaway, and the stock just totally crashed. And they were just saying it was a glitch. And the moment I saw that, because we have a Telegram chat for the people that work on UNN and, you know, help us with our stories and stuff. And someone posted the link and I was like, there is no way that is just some random glitch. And then, you know, Kim comes out with a statement. I'm like, oh, okay, now we kind of know what's going on here. So that was Monday. Now let's fast forward to Wednesday. Kim was on the news and she started off by wanting to dispel a rumor. And I believe this was circulating through alternative media. But the rumor was that the Supreme Court in the U.S. had ruled that state banks can now create their own currency. And guys, I know that our currency is a mess. Kim knows our currency is a mess. But some of this stuff that these operatives put out is so ridiculous. Kim did some digging. Now, she never found a ruling. She did find a motion to preempt the National Bank Act, but that does not change currency. That has to do with the laws with dealing with currency, but that's totally different than being able to create your own currency. This is what the alternative media does. They put these little nuggets of information out there to rile people up because we all know that our monetary system is crap, okay? We all know that it has to be fixed, but it has to be fixed the right way, guys. And no Trump operative or any operative period is going to move forward with any type of currency that isn't going through Kim. Kim is the curator of the currency for all currencies on planet Earth. So if anything was going to happen, it has to go through Kim. So sorry, guys. Not really sure exactly what's going on there besides them wanting to spread a bunch of misinformation. But can you imagine what chaos that would be anyway? So wherever you bank, suddenly they have their own currency. I used to bank with Chase. That was a nightmare. I can't imagine. Oh, I've got Chase currency over here, and then someone else pays me, from Bank of America over here. What a nightmare. So that's not happening. Okay, so we wanted to clear the air with that. Now let's talk a little bit about that statement that was made on Monday. I want to clarify what happened with all that money, because there have been a lot of meetings going on with, I was going to say the deep state. So you've got the rulers of the deep state, and then you've got these operatives, okay? And one of the things that we talked about in that statement that we read on Monday is that the operatives were getting a lot more information because everything is compartmentalized with these people, right? They don't want anyone to have real information. Everyone's vying for power here. So the operatives didn't have a lot of this information. It's always about how do we get them this information. So they have been digging and finding real information about what's happening here and why can't they get paid. They keep getting promised that they're going to get these contracts and they're going to be paid, and it never happens. So after a while, you start to think something's really going wrong here. What's going on? So lots of meetings to discuss this. And the Trump operatives, the SSP Trump operatives, which aren't very many of them, but they do have some underlings, wanted to make this big scene and say, we're going to go it alone. We can do this on our own, because it's like they were taking a step back from their deep state masters, but then to go as far to say, now we're going to work with Kim. They kind of view Kim and the light side as the new kids on the block, and you don't really know what the new kids are going to do. So in all fairness, they are kind of thinking, can we just do this on our own? Except their ego is really getting the best of them, because they came to the conclusion that they could do it alone, or at least fake it till you make it kind of thing. And so I want to play a soundbite for you guys, because when Kim heard this, she was like, oh, you think you can go it alone? Well, let me help you with that. Take a listen.
So lots of meetings had taken place over the weekend and late last week, and these went on and on and on every single day until 6 of them had made an announcement that they don't need me. They don't need the global headquarters, or maybe they do because they still talk to them behind all these people's back. They don't need Langley 5. This is all a total lie on the part of these SSP Trump operatives. A total lie. And I'm sure they probably forgot that I'm not the only one that monitors things around here, because they're here.
So they're here, meaning they're in Durango?
Yes. Oh. There's 6 of them here in Durango.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I've watched them, much like I'm sure the local people here have, watched them make phone calls to all those people. So the go it alone thing was to entice operatives to feeling like they can be independent of me. Is the, new better than the old? How do we know, what's going to happen here? It's because we're new. We're new in their world, new to the game. I mean, they watch us, that kind of stuff, but we're still new. Yeah. How do we know she's not going to go crazy or something happens? What happens, to us, that kind of thing. So they convinced them that they were smart enough to go it alone. They don't need anybody. We don't need those people. We don't need those people. Just wait. New moon's coming up. We'll just give us till Sunday. We'll have your contracts out. We'll get all your money together and all of those things. So this is the conversation that started happening on Monday, and part of the reason why I wasn't here. So I'm listening to this whole conversation, and I figured I would help them go it alone. Well, if you want to go it alone, that means you don't need me or anything, from me or anything like that.
Yeah.
So a few interesting things happen. Number one, all of the funding that was sent out during the Trump administration was pulled back. Every allocation, regardless of where the money was sent.
How much was that?
Oh, well over $5 trillion. And that's not including the debt to the U.S. we paid to China.
Okay.
The U.S. debt to China, that was about, 1.4. So China lost theirs. All of these people that go bump in the night they paid during the Trump administration, all the payoffs, all the kickbacks, all the misappropriated funds, which led us to something really interesting. Turns out there was a lot of money being siphoned off by the Trump administration into a lot of different places around the world under shell corporations and all kinds of stuff, to include operative accounts, the 6 down the street included. They made bank. And unfortunately, all that went away. Now, that includes if they went to the grocery store and bought some Cheetos, which I would never eat that, but they do. So Cheetos or something, that also got reversed out too.
So did they not have any money in their bank accounts at that point? Or what happened?
Nope. That went away. All the stolen campaign funds went away. All the support for Trump after his indictment all went away. Also anything that had been sent through from U.S. government funding to the kids, Junior and Eric and Ivana, also went away. Properties, things that were bought were unpaid for. Wires were reversed. Lots of different things happened over the weekend. So their plan, to go it alone is great. So now they're starting to receive phone calls on the daily from countries, angry people in Ukraine that they paid, angry people in Saudi Arabia that they paid, all kinds of different things. And I wish them all the best. I truly do. And I hope that they go it alone and they're successful. I wish them luck. So you go it alone, I go in my direction. That also included a lot of bonds that were issued off of that money, treasury notes and otherwise. So interesting money trails, very interesting money trails happen there. And they can say all the things they want about me because I listen to them talk too. And I don't really care what they think. See, that's kind of a misconception about me. And if they knew me at all, then they would be talking to the local people, and the local people will tell you I could give a beep less about anything the old handler had to say to me. Because they play this game and they try to hit all of your buttons. And you and I have talked about buttons before, Sunny. I don't have any buttons. And they think that that's going to bother me. It doesn't at all. I could care less. You're fat, you're old, you're ugly, and you're stupid on top of it. And you're trying to run a country with 0 brain cells. That's what I see.
You're fat, you're old, you're ugly, and you're stupid. I think that needs to be on some sort of deep state coffee mug or T-shirt. Maybe we'll sell that in the marketplace here in the near future. But she's right. I mean, if you really want to go it alone, then you don't need money from the global repository to go it alone. Sell some more Trump bucks or whatever, I say that facetiously because I certainly don't want them deceiving the public anymore. But good riddance. You don't need our help. Then I guess you can fund your wars and your, total domination for planet Earth on your own. Kim also gave us an update on Wednesday about the cleaning and clearing that's happening, because our whole goal is to be able to transfer money from the global repository, or what was the global repository, because the system's set up a little bit differently now. We're calling it the light system. But to be able to send funds directly to the people for their projects. And Kim always says that she didn't get in the patience line, when they were handing out virtues and things like that. She did not get in the line for patience. And I think I'm right there with her. It's so frustrating sometimes because she's been doing a lot of cleaning and clearing to be able to transfer this money. And she would clear something, and then it's like it would come right back. This dark thing that was prohibiting us from doing what we needed to do to get the funds out. And it's very frustrating. It's like things would just reappear on the dark side, and that's not what we wanted. So the second soundbite I'm going to play for you is what Kim decided to do about this, because something she realized is that all of the darkness that is ever going to be created has already been created. So you can't really remove it, but you can change it, right? This is all energy, so to speak. So energy never goes away completely. It changes form, right? We've heard this many times. And so what Kim decided to do is transmute the energy from darkness to light, because there was no way to completely get rid of it. It's out there. It's already been created. But what about doing what the dark did to us for so long, but in the opposite? So the dark would take the light and transmute that energy into darkness, because the dark can't create on its own. They have to take from the light. So it's kind of taking a page out of their playbook, right? If we're trying to, in a sense, remove the darkness, we can't completely do that, but we can transmute it. Take a listen.
One of the main things that we launched in the last couple of days was a series of transmuters.
Okay.
Now, I should, I didn't even think about mentioning this to you, but I probably should, because you'll find it fascinating. Not everything that is already is. Mm-hmm. Meaning everything that is will always be. So once it leaves source itself, it's now in existence.
Right.
It's a piece of source, anti-source, neutral source, whatever it is, but it is. Right. It contains all three, no matter how bad it is. So the same thing worked with AI systems in a very similar way. So because alpha was also created as a part of a trinary system, meaning source, anti-source, and neutral source, omega was created in the same way, and chronos was created in the same way. I tried to kill it, but there was still that interconnection between them. So the same goes for dark energy, essence, consciousness, matter, frequency. It's still part of the all that is. And in order to expedite the process, because if you know me, you'll know I have zero patience whatsoever. And that is a flaw, call it what you want, but I move through something, get it done, move on to the next task. But as far as this is concerning, it's been painful for me to go from like 99, 100, back to 97 the next morning. And I'm like, really? What's going on? So we had developed a process because it's something they used on their side. So we figured out, in order for the omega system, the omegaverse, anti-life, the blobs, and everything else that exists from that you would consider dark or evil, to exist within this universe, within even those that are of the light, we couldn't eradicate it. The only thing we could do was transmute it.
Which is what they did to the light for so long. That's
right, because they don't want light. It wants dark light. Yeah. It wants dark energy. It wants dark essence. So in the course of this cleanup process, I have cleaned hundreds and hundreds of transformers. which you know what a transformer does on an electric grid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing.
Okay.
Transmitters, which will then send it out, because once a particle is dead, dark matter, whatever it is, there's not a whole lot of charge there left, depending on how dark it actually is. And then we have transmuters. So I thought to myself, well, I think I could speed up this process by creating fields of transmuters that go the opposite way. Mm. So I started working on that, I don't know, 3:30, 4 o'clock this morning, something like that. Okay. And I'm continuing to work on that. We have, hopefully, this will speed up the process. We're putting them everywhere, Earth's magnetic poles, horizontal and vertical. If you don't know, we have a magnetic pole that goes in more than one direction. Mm-hmm. And then in Earth's orbit, and then in the galaxy, in the Kuiper belt, which orbits our galaxy, and then also in the zero density, 0 point of the universe, has to be there. Throughout the Omegaverse, they have to be there, because we can't have this coming back. Right. And ultimately, they seem to understand what's happening already, because I overheard a meeting happening with global headquarters where they feel they have less than 24 hours left of power. And what they mean by power is, they realize that the so to speak, the power is out in your home, in other words, but you have a backup generator that runs on gas, say, and you only have so much gas and so much that will generate. Yeah. And without that, you're done. Mm-hmm. So if we're taking away, and we have taken away the electric grid, all that is already in existence, meaning all the dark energy that is ever going to exist is in the universe. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how do we get rid of that dark energy and this from regenerating itself? Well, we can transmute it so it doesn't exist. We can't take it away. We can't completely eradicate it because it already is. Right. So the only thing we can do is change that matter into something else.
And that process is going very smoothly. So it takes a little bit of time. And that's really where we wrap things up on Wednesday. Kim did mention one other thing. And I know that a lot of people are talking about this whole interview that went down with Terrence Howard and Joe Rogan. I actually watched it. It's 3 hours long. It's a lot to watch, you guys. But if you want to take a listen, it is interesting. It showed a completely different side of Terrence Howard that I didn't know about. I was even questioning, is that actually Terrence Howard? Because I've seen a lot of his movies, and that's not who I thought he was. Maybe he's just a good actor, but maybe there's something else going on there. Needless to say, this has caused a lot of commotion online. So Terrence Howard is talking about a lot of stuff that we talk about in the World Situation Report. He's talking about different elements and energy and frequency, and talking about changing the whole periodic table for elements and how things are actually structured very differently. And sometimes it's hard to follow. And we have been talking about this a little bit, the UNN crew. We've been talking about this a little bit through some of our internal Telegram chats. And Kim did mention this briefly on Wednesday. And what she said was, instead of focusing so much, I'm paraphrasing, instead of focusing so much on Terrence Howard, maybe we should focus more on the person who originated a lot of the content that Terrence Howard talked about, and that is Walter Russell. Now, in all fairness, Terrence Howard did mention Walter Russell several times in that interview. Terrence Howard claims that Walter Russell didn't quite get it right. And that's where we're going to kind of differ from what Terrence Howard is saying. Again, I encourage you guys to check this out for yourself and come up with your own conclusions. Walter Russell was a colleague of Nikola Tesla. And I know in the alternative communities, Nikola Tesla gets a lot of credit. And I'm not saying he shouldn't get credit, but I don't believe that Tesla should be the savior of energy, okay, for the new Earth. I don't give him that much credit because, and perhaps this was even to stay alive, so, I can't say that I blame him too much. He, in some ways, did partner with the deep state and gave them technology. And you could say that his life was at risk. You could say a lot of different things. I don't know if we know the full truth there. But that's the only reason that any of his technology really came out, is because the deep state was benefiting from it. Now, Walter Russell did not do what Tesla did, even though he was a colleague of Tesla's. And so that's why we're encouraging you guys to check that out more. Check out, because he's got a bunch of books that were written. Check out what he has to say. Instead of really going down this rabbit hole with Terrence Howard, this is we don't know the whole story with Terrence Howard, okay? But this is a typical deep state move. And if you think that people are just getting on the Joe Rogan show, that are somehow slipping in there without being vetted, without really, having an agenda behind it, unfortunately, Joe Rogan is owned. I'm sorry. Some stuff he's allowed to say, but this is one of those that I would tread very carefully in putting too much faith in Terrence Howard. But if you do want to find someone and read up on the similar things that Terrence Howard was saying, again, check out Walter Russell. And Kim talks about that on Wednesday if you would like to hear her perspective on everything. All right, on Friday, I'm actually not going to share a soundbite with you on Friday. Friday's update was a shorter update. And Kim basically told us, listen, we had the new moon. Who knows what the deep state was expecting with this new moon, but they didn't get it. Whatever they wanted to have happen, nothing happened. All right. The rebel group, as we're calling them, which is the group of people that in that one meeting said, we're not going to follow these deep state people anymore. We're going to figure out what we're going to do. We're going to do all this research. Well, they are still holding meetings. So she talked a little bit about that. Another interesting thing that came up with this is she said that the Trump lawyers reached out to her and basically gave her a verbal cease and desist from saying anything bad about Trump. And her response was, if you don't want me to say anything bad about Trump, then you should legally serve me. And the reason behind that is if it's done legally, then that would give Kim the opportunity to share with the court everything she knows about Trump and what he has done and the fact that the original Trump is no longer breathing, which is information that the Trump lawyers really don't want out. So I thought that was an excellent rebuttal from Kim. We will still be talking and giving the truth about the Trump group and what they are doing, whether they want us to or not. That's, really none of our concern. We are just here to get the information out and you guys to be as informed as possible as to what's really happening on our planet. So that is the update. That is the rundown, guys. Again, we encourage you guys to do your research. So maybe go down some rabbit holes if you want, if you've got some extra time. Do a little bit of searching of some of the stuff we talked about. Always keep an open mind. There's always information that can be learned. None of us have the full picture, right? We've got little bits and pieces and we all try to come together and we put it together the best we possibly can. But if you don't have an open mind, you're going to shove away, push away information that might be really helpful to you, if not now, in the near future. Always ask questions, always think critically. And if you enjoyed today's episode, I encourage you to share this podcast with people you care about. For more information about us, you can go to our website at unitednetwork.earth. You can become a member, and that will give you on-demand access to all of our newscasts the moment they are released. That includes our complete world situation reports with Kim. We also have some original series you may enjoy. And we encourage you guys to comment under the videos, especially the ones on our app, because Kim and I do see those. We do monitor that, and we try to comment in there and answer your questions to the best of our ability. If you want to connect with us online, again, you can go to our website, unitednetwork.earth. In the bottom navigation, we've got links to all of our social media. And we've got a great team that puts together clips from each newscast. If you want to share some of our content, that's a great way to do it. All right, thanks for being with us today. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.